Brook Street, Sugar Land, Texas, after the storm. Now this storm was Hurricane Harvey, but we want to show you where we are now, because the buildings that you see here and the space that's here, the 10 acres that are here, and the 3 main buildings that we have here on property were not here some years ago. This all happened after another hurricane, a hurricane named Hurricane Alicia. A lot of people right now are just in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, and it's difficult to see what the Lord can do after the storm. But we want you to join us on a journey to go back and look what happened to these people who are Faith Lutheran Church, Sugar Land, Texas, after Hurricane Alicia. And we want you to go with us as we go back and show you where we were before the hurricane, and where we ended up is here after the hurricane, and we'll tell you a story about that. We were a congregation that started in kind of a strange way in the first place. A group of people. Should I turn the Wi-Fi off then? So after I finished at VA Hospital at the end of June, we had our first worship service July 9th of 1972. After the church began to grow a little bit, our national body had actually bought 10 acres out here on Highway 6, and we bought 5 acres from them. And then after we were there, we were the only building between Highway 90 and Highway 59 on Highway 6. All the development that you see here, it was just bare. There was nothing else. If somebody asked, well, what's your address? We didn't need an address because there was nothing to benchmark it. We were literally the only building between 59 and Highway 6. As a result of the development and everything else, it's grown up since then. But when Hurricane Alicia came to town, the next morning after the hurricane, a tornado hit our facility, and it destroyed about the fourth of the building towards the road. And that morning people got there, people were just crying, because it looked like a World War II bombed out facility. Area, and any area that was available for sale around here, would have been worth a lot more than what we knew we could afford. But after about a year negotiation, which started with Sugar Land Properties paying off $274,000 of indebtedness on our facility so they could negotiate with us free and clear, we actually ended up with an offer to exchange our 5 acres and 1 building for 10 acres on Brook Street of 2 buildings and 10 acres. Exactly what the Lord said. When we moved from Highway 6 here, and we'll show you the original site just a second. When we moved here from there, we had actually a caravan. One of the guys in his pickup and a little trailer behind it. We actually took the altar that we'd built to replace the other one, carried it out, put in a trailer, and had a march with banners, music, marched from that site to the new site and dedicated the building. In between that time and now, we also built a gymnasium. But if we understood at that time that God had now given us a property and we were responsible to be stewards of it, I think some of us kind of knew that and even would have said that, but it didn't really blossom into what it is today. Because very honestly, in my life, a lot of what I see God doing, I see in the rearview mirror. I didn't see it coming. It was not. People said, man, you had great faith to walk this journey out. And I said, no, it was a God thing. And I just stand amazed at what God has done. because since that time, and we never solicited this, we never looked for it, never planned for it, but we now have 6 different ministries who share the campus. We call it Shared Sacred Space, and it's become the Miracle on Brook Street. It's an experience there. We have a preparatory academy, and 4 other churches of 3 different denominations that all share their property together, and that's Noah's Ark had to be a very busy place, because for us it's been an incredible journey. We're the ones who have the responsibility to steward the property, but we believe and we like it when people tell us that their kids are growing up in their ministries on campus saying our church, because it is. It's something Lord gave to us to be stewards of, and we didn't see how that was all going to unfold. But as I look back, I can see that God had a plan from before the start. How could you ever expect that God could? We didn't. God could leverage 5 acres to 10 acres, 1 building to 2 buildings, and this building to the right here with the parking lot covers here. In fact, let's just turn in here. I haven't been in here for a long time. We're turning into where our property was originally. As we're turning in, we'd be driving into the parking lot right now. That would be to the north side of where our church was, and we're approaching what was the back property. And off to the left here is a waterway that was here, and there's a huge pile of stones here that one time had a fountain bubbling down over it. To the right there is our kids would climb out there on those rocks after church. Many a Sunday, if the parents were not in a hurry to get gone, the kids could get out here. They'd be like a bunch of little goats on that pile of rocks out there. And this was the play area between the church and the waterway. This was our southern property here. And so as we look back, I would hesitate to say that anybody that I know of, and I've been there through the duration of it, nobody said, boy, we see God's hand in this hurricane. We trust God's going to do something bigger than we could ever believe. But before the hurricane happened, I had a call to go to West Texas. Now, I'm a country boy, but West Texas was not my idea of fun. It was not the place where I ever thought I would want to go or be willing to go for ministry. And as I was wrestling with that call, our women's Bible study was in Acts. And one morning we had the Bible study where Paul is, and they're saying Paul, there's a prophetic word that says, behold, you'll see my face no more. And it just broke my heart. I thought I was going to West Texas. And that night afterwards, I was just wrestling in my mind, and a passage from Samuel came to my mind where God tells Israel, he's angry that they've asked for a king. But he says, you know what? Yeah, you've asked for a king, and that was disobedience to me, rejected me as your king. But even now, with this decision you made, which was a wrong one, even now, if you obey me, you can stand and see this great thing which I'm going to do. And over the years since then, I've been able to look back and see more than I could have imagined. Paul says, heaped up, pressed down, shaken together, running over, more than man can imagine or even dream of. We're experiencing that now. And as we've experienced that to this point, I'm just totally amazed. But every time I get to the next step, it's like God moves the finish line a little further. And I believe even now that I have yet to see greater things than I've even experienced to this point or could even imagine to this point. And I would like to say to everybody who has experienced the devastation of Harvey, that God is in it. The storms don't happen and catch God unawares. And in my experience, God is working things before they happen to be redemptive in everything that he does. And so we really need to say, God, let us leave room for your grace in all that we do, so that whatever we do is anchored in the reality that you're good and that you're sovereign. If God's good and he's not sovereign, we're in trouble. If he's sovereign and he's not good, we'd still be in trouble. But our evidence, see, there's our 5 acres, and we're just a few blocks as we return to 800 Brook Street. If God is involved in whatever we're doing, whatever the future is, God is good. Now, sometimes, like us, I'm just amazed. It wasn't because of great faith on our part. We didn't choose this. The last night, or the night after the first day of the Diet of Worms, where Martin Luther was called to account for his teachings and the Holy Roman Empire, he asked for time, and that night he wrote a prayer. And in the end of his prayer, he said, "Oh God, please send help." And in that prayer, he says, "God, I didn't choose this." Now, he didn't choose, everything was coming against him, but he chose just to walk in what he knew to be true. And I think that's our journey. It's not that we have a chance or even would want to choose the future. We don't. God is our future. But when we choose trust in him, whether it turns out like Luther and he had a price put on his head, or like us, and we have 10 acres and 2 buildings that we call the Miracle of Brook Street, that's God's deal. And his grace is promised to be sufficient for one journey or another. And so we need to never stand in analysis that brings about judgment of somebody where it turned out good, where God's, quote, redemptive, and it's a wonderful story. The stories of disaster are never, ever without the grace of God either. And so when we look back at our journey, we didn't choose this journey. And we don't have on our own the ability to manage this Miracle of Brook Street. But God in his grace over these last years has proven himself faithful, and I believe is in the process of positioning us also to be an instrument of demonstrating his grace to the Christian community. The world around us we're very aware. We're very much aware of how the world sees the church divided. Where's God doing a work where people can actually come together on one property, one place together? That's a miracle of the grace of God. As he publicly does something to declare to the world around us here that Christians can come together, stepping across racial barriers, across age barriers, whatever it may be, and we can experience it. Here we are at Brook Street, 800 Brook Street, and look at the sign up front. He lifted me out of the mud and set my feet up on a rock, Psalm 40, verse 2. As I think back about the years that brought us here and about the journey that we've been on, I say, God, I never could have imagined or believed.
Wrap it up.
Okay. So I would say to any of you who have experienced Hurricane Harvey, trust God to be with you in the storm. Whatever the outcome is, I don't know that. I don't even know. I know some of our present. I don't even know our future here. But I do know over my lifetime that God has proven himself faithful beyond a doubt. And that's my encouragement to you, to trust that God can't change his character. He's always redemptive in all of what he does. And he's not just sovereign, but he's good. And so whatever the days ahead are for us, immediately, there may be a lot of grief involved. There will be for so many people. In the moment, it's impossible not to. And you really have to embrace the grief, because if you don't grieve it now, it'll find ways to come out, and it won't be good and it won't be healthy. So we need to grieve with those who grieve and rejoice with those who rejoice. But trust God that his future can never be our future can never be without him, or the presence or the promise of his grace. And when we have that as an anchor, then whatever is ahead of us, if God's for us, who can be against us? And that isn't just about people. That's about anything in this whole world. and He is sovereign and He's good, and we would commend you to His character. God is good. So, Miracle Brook Street. Thanks for joining us, and we hope this is an encouragement to you.